This is a man who knows his history. And of course, with Anzac Day upon us on Thursday, this is a great story, actually. It is, of course, from history out there, Harold Peacock, and he's got an Anzac story about a World War I mother from Cambooya who fought to keep her son's medals. G'day, Harold.
Yeah, good morning, Damo. Yeah, it's a story with a difference. Most Anzac stories don't talk about the mothers, but I think it's time we do.
Well, I think so too, mate. So let's have a little look at this story. I always love these sorts of stories as well.
Yeah, look, it's a little bit different because it was in Toowoomba in 1884 that 19-year-old Katharina Fett married George Gottfried Michael Prolox in a union of Prussian and German descent. Katharina was not a lady to be trifled with because shortly after the marriage, she impressed upon her husband to complain to council about the state of the night soil near their Long Street Toowoomba home. But the marriage was a fruitful one nonetheless and produced 9 offspring, including 7 sons. Now, with the onset of the First World War in 1914, it was inevitable that one of the Prolock boys would join up, particularly with the pressure of anti-German sentiment that was growing across Australia. You see, at least 91 German place and district names in Australia were changed. South Australia made the most with 69 changes. In Queensland, there were around 14 changes. Even King George V changed his name from the German Saxe-Coburg-Gotha to Windsor, which the family is today.
There you go.
Now, some towns followed a patriotic theme, like the Darling Downs town of Bismarck. Now, Bismarck was named after Otto von Bismarck, who was the Prussian and German statesman known as the Iron Chancellor. But in 1916, it was renamed McLagan after the British Army officer who was in command of the 4th Australian Division. And there was also one change that I think was a mistake. You see, Shady was a small town northwest of Toowoomba. In 1915, amid the anti-German feeling, the name was changed to Kilbirnie. But as it turns out, Shady wasn't German after all. It was actually Lebanese. Anyway, Katharina's third son, Johann, or John Prolox, was a 22-year-old drover and still living at home outside of Cambooya, south of Toowoomba, when in 1915 he enlisted in the army. Now, John joined the 4th Division's 47th Battalion. After a few months in Egypt, he went to England where he spent most of the time in hospital. But he was at the front in France for only 19 days when on the 27th of March 1918, his battalion advanced up the line prior to the Battle of Dernicourt. Now, there was not a mark on his body, but John was killed outright by a concussion when a shell exploded nearby. Now, Leonard Don, whose wife was living in Ipswich at the time, he was wounded by the same shell, but survived. And then there was Toowoomba's Sergeant Edwin Milliken. He was later awarded the Military Medal for bravery. He knew John really well and wrote home to John's mother, Katharina. But that's when everything started to go really weird. You see, John's belongings were sent to his next of kin, but nothing arrived back home with his mother in Cambooya. That's because in 1918, John was surreptitiously married in England, and so his possessions were being sent to his apparent widow, a Mrs. A.M. Prolox, in Barker Street at Kensington, London. And presumably the proceeds of his will and life insurance went there as well. Now, meanwhile, back in Cambooya, questions were being asked. John's widow had written to his mother, Katharina, asking for money so that she could come to Australia. Katharina, being a good mother-in-law, duly sent the money, but neither the money nor the woman were ever heard of again. Now, officials at Australia House in London made inquiries about the character of this woman, who by then was known as Mrs. A.M. Webster. A police report in 1922 said that the woman was living with a man who was not her husband. Now, back then that was a bit scandalous.
Oh, yeah.
And the Base Records Office in Melbourne ordered that distribution of John's memorial scroll, plaque and medals be stopped and that they be returned to Australia. Now, Katharina, she engaged the Toowoomba firm of solicitors, Wanderley and Hall, which, by the way, are still operating in Toowoomba today. She made a claim for her late son's awards. But it was too late, Damo. You see, for some of the mementos at least, the memorial scroll and the plaque had already gone to this Shady widow. But the medals were stopped in time, and so John Prolock's British War Medal and Victory Medal did find their way to his mother in Cambooya after all. Now, Katerina also lived to see the medals of a grandson who served, in the Second World War in the Middle East, New Guinea. She passed away in 1947 at the age of 42, and hopefully her son's medals remain safe with the family, who are still in the Toowoomba district today. So Damo, not only for the Prolock family, but let's remember all our fallen on Thursday, this Anzac Day.
Yeah, what a great story, mate. And I mean, you must put so much effort into researching those, because crossing 2 continents, I mean, tracking that story wouldn't have been easy.
Yeah, well, it's a shady lady in Kensington and London. You want to track them down and keep your sons away from them.
Exactly, yeah. Don't let them anywhere near them. That's what I say. Mate, another great story. And, of course, that will be posted up on your website, won't it?
Yes, go online to historyouthere.com. There'll be photos and stories. All the stories from 4WK are there.
Fantastic, mate. Really love it, and I know our listeners do as well. And, of course, if anybody's got any great historical yarns, they can pass it on to us, and we'll get it to you as well, won't we?
Yes, you try and stop me. I'll be researching it, and I'll be telling you all about it.
Well, mate, you have a great day on Anzac Day, and we'll look forward to catching up with you again next week.
Unless we forget.
There we go. Harold Peacock joining us there from historyouthere.com. Check out that story and many others on his website. It's a great read, and it's all local as well. It's all in our very own backyard.